Well, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the stream. Let me adjust my camera here. So, literally like 2 minutes before I went live, it finally happened. So I've been having this like pot of water right next, like on my desk this entire time. Months I've streamed, right? And I've never knocked it over. Well, it happened. I 1000% knocked it over today. Got all over my mouse, all over my desk, because I'm just super clumsy. But thankfully nothing got broken. I'm just a little bit moist now. But never mind, we're good to go. So let's go ahead and get started. Continue working on our ogre vampire hunter here. So last time we worked on the flame, a little bit on his duster, his skin, and then most importantly the non-metallic metal on his gun. So today I want to finish working on the skin tone on his chest, start getting all of my base coats with the different piece of leather and accessories, and then start in with some detail work. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I think the first thing that I'm going to want to start with are his gloves. He's got these cool little gloves with like spiky bits on them. So we'll see what we can do there. As far as color goes, I think what I'm going to do is take some burnt umber, mix in some of my leather brown, and do a nice little custom color because we want it to look like leather, but we don't want it to match the color of his duster, which is this pure dark umber. So we'll get some of those colors on our palette here, and looks like we got a little bit of a clog in our leather. Come on. All right, let's try this. I always hate taking the tops off of these because I always feel like I'm going to just drop it and get paint everywhere. I think I did that one time. Just a bit. There we go. Perfect. Look at that. Knocked my friggin' water over, but evidently I won't spill paint everywhere. Alright, so let's grab a brush here. We'll go with the number 2. Or I'm sorry, this is a number 1 brush. We'll go start about 50-50 dark umber with leather as our shadow. And of course our Zenithal undercoat here is really going to help us with those highlights. So I don't know how much you can see it now since I've already put on a couple coats, but you can kind of see in those recesses where we put our dark umber on the jacket here that it's a little bit darker than what we have on the front. That's of course due to that Zenithal undercoat. So again, at this point we want to keep our paints a little bit thin because we're trying to get the nice even coat. We don't want any like paint marks or anything like that on, or paint marks, brush marks. I'm also going to try to avoid the little spikes because I want to keep those nice and bright. While I'm doing this, I'm still kind of looking over the rest of his outfit, trying to figure out exactly what colors I want next. Specifically his hat. I still haven't decided what color I want his hat. And he also has these pretty cool greaves on, almost like leather greaves. I'm not entirely certain what color I want to paint those either. I might just do the same color as his gloves. I don't know yet. And of course, this miniature has some amazing detail work on it. Again, it was funny. I was saying last time that I love everything about this miniature except his face, because his face has the least amount of detail. But everything else looks absolutely fantastic. And for those of you who have been with the stream for a little while, kind of probably noticed that I do have a new painting handle today. It's the exact same one. Well, not the exact same one. The company that made the files for my old handle made a new one, and the new one is just a bit longer. So this is my old one. So it's got a little bit more weight to it, and it kind of gives me a better and more sure grip on the painting handle, so we don't end up having what happened to Liam's miniature, which is me dropping it into a pile of paint, which is never a good thing. It's fixable, but it's really annoying to have to go back and fix something that you worked, because on that particular point I'd already spent, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 hours on that miniature, and it just so happened to drop in such a way that the part I was working on the most got hit. But just got to keep going on. So I'm going to attempt to do a little bit of the leather effect that I did with the last miniature with this boy too. So adding a little bit of that cross hatching on the areas where I would normally highlight, just to give it a little bit of a wear pattern. And then probably what I'll do is these little designs on his greaves or sleeves or whatever you want to call them, I'm going to do it like a black leather, almost like a leather accent. I think that would look pretty good. Cool. Interestingly enough, this color I made is almost drying to be almost like, I want it to be different and a little bit lighter than the base coat that I did with the duster, but now that it's drying on some of these bits, it actually looks almost identical to the color I used to highlight the duster. It's like that defeated the whole purpose of me mixing my own color. Oh well. We can deal with it though. It's not that big of a deal. And once I start adding some of the lighting effects, it's going to look pretty different than it is now, so. Cool. So just going in, adding our second coat here just to make sure that we get good coverage and good opacity. We don't want it to be fully opaque because we still want a little bit of that zenithal highlight to come through, but we don't want it to look completely opaque or completely translucent. Kind of in the middle. At least that's what I generally go for. I was watching a video the other day by Miniac, who is a miniature painter on YouTube. And he was talking about this concept of what's known as a mother color. So essentially it's a color that you add to all of your different tones in painting, and that kind of gives unity to your work. And I was thinking that would be a really cool experiment for my next miniature, to kind of attempt to add a Unity color to it. So I'll kind of think it over, figure out exactly how I want to do that, mostly because I don't know how to do it. And then we'll implement it in our next attempt at painting something awesome. Cool. I think this guy's looking pretty cool so far. I mean, it's like I've mentioned several times now, it's just a cool sculpt, so I think it was going to look cool whether I painted it or not. I hope it looks cooler now that I painted it, but that is for not me to decide. One of the things that I dislike about painting with the same color for a while is you tend to get dry paint on the very tip of your brush, and it's super annoying, especially when you get down to like right now where I don't really have a whole lot of this color left. So I'm either gonna have to remix it and hope I get it close to what I had before, or I just stretch out what I have and just deal with a little bit of dry paint on my brush. So I elect to deal with it for a second. It's not going to take that long. There we go. Not bad. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our colors, but this time we're going to add 2 parts leather brown to 1 part dark umber. And then I will add a little bit of, where are you at? Yellow ochre to this, just to start bringing out that kind of natural leather look. Just a touch of it. Get that mess off our brush. All right, so this is what we are going to start using for our wear on everything. So I'm just going to do what we did on the last one. And that is anywhere that we think we would have wear, I'm just going to do like little tiny cross hatches. So on the top of all the knuckles, on any part that looks like it's overly wrinkled, get these little tiny lines over them to give just a bit of texture and character. Because we can highlight all the volumes and make everything look super cool, but if it doesn't look like leather because it looks too clean or too smooth or whatever, then the effect isn't going to sell as well as it would if we add a little bit of texture to our painting. That's one thing that I learned here pretty recently, is when adding color and texture and things like that, like it really transforms your work from something that resembles one thing to something that actually feels like it's something, right? So like if we're talking about faces, for instance, adding color and blush and things like that looks so much better than just highlighting volumes. What I mean by highlighting volumes is, I mean, it looks better than just like, well, this part is raised up, so we're going to add a highlight, and this part is sunk down, so we're going to add you know, a shadow or something. So adding those volumes is good, and it can really make your miniature come to life. But adding texture is really what starts to sell that this is something that is in the world, that's kind of alive, if you will. So right now we're just adding just the beginning stages of our wear. So it's not really going to be a ton. It's not going to be too terribly visible either. But we're just laying that foundation. Just like with anything else that we do, right? Always need a good foundation, or else everything is going to come crumbling down. And this one thing that I'm kind of excited about with this miniature in particular is a lot of these volumes are very small. So adding this texture at the scale that I'm adding it to is something new for me. Well, technically, the whole concept of adding texture is something new for me, so it's not exactly, you know, completely mind-blowing as far as scale. It's just the fact that I'm adding texture. Some of these wider parts that don't really seem to have much as far as volume goes, I'm just going to add cross hatching, whereas the rest of it I'm pretty much just doing lines and wear patterns and things like that. And I'll go back and I'll also start adding things like nicks and cuts and things like that in the leather. And then one thing I'm going to do really quick is, you notice back here last time I kind of tried to do some wear pattern and stuff like that, but in my opinion the leather matched the color of the coat too much, so it didn't really stand out. So I'm just going to paint over that with the highlight color just to add a little bit of variance in our leather types, because more than likely whoever made his gloves was not the same person who made this duster. So we'll add it to make it look like it's just raw leather back here. And the same on the straps here on the front. And there is a ton of metal on this. That's why I think this is going to be a really fun project for me personally, because, you know, not only are we going to get to do some object source lighting with this, but we're also going to be able to do non-metallic metal with object source lighting. Like I mentioned last time, that is something that I have never even attempted. I'm still pretty new to using some more advanced, quote-unquote advanced techniques like object source lighting and non-metallic metal. So we'll see how it turns out. Like I mentioned before, you never know whether or not you can do something until you try. If you can't do something, you just keep doing it over and over again until you get it right. Because giving up is the only surefire way to know, or is the only way that you will never be able to do something. to an extent. All right, what do we want to do next? We want to start adding some texture to these little top bits here. So I'm just gonna, again, do a little bit of cross hatching here to begin with. Doing a few broader lines, and then we'll get in with our, once we start highlighting up. And we'll do our more fine lines. No idea what leather this belt was supposed to be made out of, but it looks so cool. All right, cool. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take a little bit of this color, move it over. I'm actually gonna grab a bit of orange. Here we go. Just a touch. Add a little bit of orange to it. A little bit more yellow ochre. Again, just a little bit, not much. And then we'll bring in some off-white. Let's use polished bone, because we're gonna need to start cranking up the luminance a little bit more. There we go. All right, now we'll start with our kind of nice, like, heavy wear points. With this, I'm using just the very tip of my brush to kind of get that very fine line. Just allowing the paint to flow off the brush onto the miniature. I'm not really applying any pressure at all. I'm doing that same motion that I did with the bust that I just finished, the last one I did, where I'm creating little X's all the way up and down the points where I want there to be nice wear patterns on. Like that. And you can kind of see, if I move it closer, get that look of wear and weathering going on. And we'll do the same thing across the taller volumes on these little wrist guards here. There we go. And we'll do a bit of an edge highlight, just kind of a spotty one all along here. Again, just moving it in and out, adding random dots and lines across the edge of his pauldron there. And then we'll do this exact same thing over here, except we've got a little bit of a difference here. We've got a few interesting, like, little wrinkles here on the side of his glove. So we'll add a little bit of wear on top of those before we go into our normal pattern. like so. And we'll continue to do so on the other. I've been calling this I'm pretty sure I've called this a pauldron several times today. It's not a pauldron. Pauldrons go on your shoulders. This is definitely a greave. Then we will do all the little buckles here. So for this, I'm not really going to do a bunch of cross hatching like I did, but what I am going to do is I'm going to add like lines going from the inside out to the edges. Like so. And then moving on to his spike holder on top, we'll just start adding a little bit more wear. A little bit more water because the paint isn't flowing off the tip of my brush like I need it to, which indicates it's probably drying out just a touch. There. And then highlight along the top here, and I'm not going to be highlighting or doing what I would normally do for those top pieces where I kind of do the dots and the skips and stuff. The reason for that is looking at those, that's where the spikes would be going in and out of, and so I feel like it would be a little bit more of a consistent wear pattern than not. Also going to consciously start adding a few highlights here and there to where the light would be hitting, or for where the light would be hitting. Cool. All right. Next, we will add a little bit of more yellow ochre, touch more orange, and a touch more of our beige. This will be our final wear color. We're just going to add little dots all around the glove, maybe some thin dashed lines to make it look like they're cuts and wear in the leather versus necessarily like consistent wear. Like so. And we'll continue that all along. And again, adding more consistent wear on the top of these spike pouches, because again, I think those would be a little bit more consistently worn in. Cool, 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 cool. And then on the buckles here, we'll just do an edge highlight. And then the edges that are towards the light, we'll just go ahead and paint those that pure color. All right, and then the same thing with these buckles here. I'll just go ahead and highlight these all the way up because they are going to be next to the flame. Just being a little bit more conscious to make sure that those recesses are still nice and dark. Because the closer we get to the flame, the darker our shadows are going to be. There we go. And then we'll go ahead and do a little bit of wear on these back bits here. So I'm just going to start off with some rather wide cross hatching. Not wide, but just long. Just to give it a little bit of texture. I don't really want a ton. Again, this is supposed to be a different leather, so we are going to take what we got so far and brighten it up even more. Adding a little bit more of that orange in. And we're going to slowly work these in towards the center. Like that. Cool. And then we'll add a little bit of that to our edges here. And then add a big old chunk of our beige color to that. Try to get down to that really, really bright leather color. And we're just going to dot that in and around there. Add it to all of our highest wear points, which will be on the rings. And then a little bit around the edges of the actual leather itself. And one thing I'm going to try is I'm going to take a little bit of the purest beige and just going to start adding it to the points where we would see the absolute most wear. So on the corners here, and I'm using it very sparingly, kind of a more is less type deal. And I personally hate the way that looks. But I think what the problem is, it needs a little bit more unity of color. So let me grab some Agrax Earthshade. I'm just going to add a little bit of this to it, but I'm actually going to water it down so that we're reducing the amount of pigment that we have here. because I don't want a full-on wash. I just want enough to kind of darken it up and unify the colors here. Yeah, I think that looks a little bit better. Cool. And I was planning on doing the same with everything else, but in that case, it just looked significantly better. So adding this wash, again, it is going to help unify some of these colors, but it's also going to make the recesses a lot darker and make it look a lot more contrasty with some of the brighter highlights that we applied. Again, having it watered down like that is going to help us quite a bit because we're not going to change the color of what we applied too terribly much. But it will accent what we've already done. There we go. Sweet. Yeah, I think that works. All right, so now I've done that, I want to go ahead and start bringing out some of the edges and colors and things for his duster. Now, one of the things about the duster that I was really nervous about is matching the color of the duster with the color of the leather, which I want to avoid because I don't want it to look like a leather duster. I want it to look more of like canvas color. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to use similar colors because, of course, we've already used, for instance, dark umber in my highlights. But we're going to use, for instance, Zandri Dust to brighten the color instead of our orangish and yellow hues, which should help separate it a little bit. We will add just a touch of the leather brown, just because that will kind of counteract that Zandri Dust and prevent it from desaturating too much. So take some water. Okay. Now for this, instead of going in a cross-hatching pattern, there's already kind of built into this areas where we can just add a couple lines, kind of spreading out from there, almost as if like you're seeing the coat wrinkle. And it's wearing along those wrinkles. So in this case, we're just going to go in single direction versus in the other, in the leather, we're going in a cross pattern. And I intentionally went a little bit too light, or too subtle here, because I don't want to really make these highlights shout out too much yet. Because with cloth, our light is going to be a lot less contrasty, right? If we look at cloth, cloth generally gives a very soft reflection versus a harsh one. So we don't want our highlights to be super harsh. We want it to slowly build up. How's it going, Liam? It's going well. Hope you're doing well. Awesome. You excited about next week, buddy? Because I am so excited, because I'm looking forward to seeing some people's faces. So for those of you who don't know, Liam here is going to have his one shot for his character in Trials of Imagination on Tuesday. I'm going to have the pleasure of DMing for him and for the rest of the cast. But got some stuff planned, and I'm super excited about it. Oof. So yeah, it rained here too. I actually lost power. I wasn't even sure if I was going to be able to stream, but I lost power probably around maybe it was like 7:30-ish Eastern time. Yeah, I did. Well, and thankfully too, because I was working when it happened. I work from home a lot of the time, so and I absolutely have to have power to work. So that was fun. All right, cool. So we're getting some nice textures here. I think it's looking nice. We are starting to desaturate a little bit, because if you look with some of our highlights compared to our darker ones, it's quite contrasty. Part of that is because our brown color is a little bit more white than it is, or it's getting towards a white color, which is what we wanted. I just didn't want it to go that fast. I want it to be a little bit more subtle than that, but we'll see how it turns out once we start to actually highlight up instead of just texture. Next, we'll do his collar here. And I'll go ahead and just do a pretty stark edge highlight here, because what I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to go ahead and start to add in some of our lighting effect here. I'm going to do that while I texture. Again, looking down our light source to kind of figure out what would be illuminated and what wouldn't be. And adding in those highlights. One thing you got to be aware of whenever you're doing object source lighting is what would actually cast a shadow and what wouldn't. So that is definitely something I don't have down packed, but Because light acts weird. Light is weird. Because like it bounces off of some stuff, it gets absorbed by other things, and it seems completely random sometimes. And I'm too lazy to be a scientist and figure out how light works. Even though figuring out how light works would make me a better painter, because I will understand, you know, how freaking light works. That, you know, that thing that I'm trying to imitate right now. So I'm gonna have a bit of a glaze here just to soften up this transition down here. Like so. How's it going, Calico? I'm dead. I'm alive again. If I'm dead, then why do I post? Because I want people, even after death, to be haunted by the absolute insanity of my existence. Also what I said. Yes, Liam, I'm aware, but it is a joke. So just adding more of this shadow here. Trying to make sure I highlight where light would hit and I don't where it wouldn't. Because that's easy. That's an easy concept right there. Whew, I don't know if y'all heard that, but my elbow just cracked. Felt great. Again, we're gonna start in with our lighting effects here, so I just want to make sure that I am painting where the light would hit and I'm not painting where light would not hit. And again, sounds easy, it ain't. hoping I'm doing this justice, because again, especially when it comes to lighting, I am not the greatest. That's interesting. This light is playing kind of an optical illusion on me to where the paint that I'm using on this section almost looks like it's a different color when I change the angle on it. Cool. All right. So now we're going to add a little bit more of our Xandri dust in. Get our next highlight phase going. We're going to keep highlighting up until we get to our pure Xandri dust tone. So that we make it look nice and bright. It is quite a funny TikTok. It's probably, I think I was telling Calico the other day, it's probably my favorite TikTok so far. I say that, and it's funny because I remember when TikTok was like first starting to get big, and they had like a just absolute metric ton of ads on YouTube, and I essentially swore that I would never download the app because I was so annoyed by it. And now me and every other millennial are addicted to it. But yes, if you are into stuff that is funny. I say that almost like as a joke, is like who isn't into stuff that's funny, but I actually know people who at work who do not watch things like stand-up comedy because they don't like comedies. Or not just stand-up comedy, but like comedies in general. Like they don't like they don't watch comedic movies, they don't watch comedy like TV shows or anything like that. I found that so incredibly ironic. Because in my opinion, life is a comedy. How's it going, Stormtrooper? Welcome to this stream. We are working on this this awesome miniature. Oh gosh. See, I knew I was gonna regret actually telling you my name. Did you have a bad day at work or just a long day at work? Oh no, wait, y'all have your outage this week, don't you? Sounds about right. Not gonna lie, this song, the beat that this song was to, I'm not gonna lie, like the first thing I thought of was oh, I can't think of it now, but it's oh yeah, Space Jam DVD, Space Jam DVD, Space Jam DVD, Space Jam DVD. Nice. What is Chaos Gate? Is it one of their RTS or what? Alright, so we're going to take a little bit of our yellow here, start adding it in. Because not only do we want this to start brightening up, we also want to start bringing out that yellow. Gotcha. Okay. So right here close to the fire, we're going to start adding in this next highlight phase, which is going to have a lot of yellow tones in it because, you know, fire. We're going to start in adding our lighting effect. Little doohickey on the tip of my brush. That's all right. Sorry, I'm not chatting as much as I was at the beginning. I'm kind of trying to concentrate a little bit. I'm trying to be a little bit more precise than I was at the beginning. At the beginning, I was just kind of throwing paint around, but now I really want to make sure that I am paying attention to where this yellow goes. Because I don't want his coat to read like yellow. I want it to look like it has this yellow light being applied to it. Eventually, we will add just this pure ochre color to just the top recesses of this, again just to give it that little bit of tint of yellow. Actually, I might want to try this color. This is called Naples Yellow by SoFi. So it's a little bit of a more of an orange yellow than the ochre that I was using. And I think this will read a little bit more like the reflective fire, or the reflection of fire, a little bit more than our ochre would. Bring in a little bit of that Xandri dust, just so that we have a little bit of color unity. What is it? Is it Stormtrooper? Is it multiplayer or single player? Gotcha. There is going to be an Ultramarine. I don't remember. Well, I say Ultramarine. I think it's just Space Marine. First-person shooter coming out here pretty soon. Too. From what I've seen, from what I've seen as far as like the reviews go, people really enjoyed the first one. So what do you like most about it, Stormtrooper? Is it the story or the gameplay? Holy cow. So I've been looking like super close into this, and I look up and actually that looks so cool. I'm really, really happy with how this is turning out so far, guys. Gotcha. Okay, well, I'll definitely have to check it out then. As somebody who enjoys the tabletop version. And actually, I'm currently building a Warhammer Fantasy army. Here's one of my little skeleton warriors that I've been assembling. So far, I've got a battalion of skeleton warriors, a battalion of skeleton spearmen, a battalion, or not a battalion, I can't remember a horde, I think is what it's called. A regiment. A regiment of skeleton warriors, a regiment of wow, I'm blanking on everything today. Skeleton warriors, skeleton spearmen, a group of ghouls, a corpse cart, which I actually want to paint on stream because it looks wicked, and then what is it called? I think it's called like, it's not corpse guard or dark or like, you know, Night Guard or something like that. So basically, he's a higher tier skeleton. And we'll start adding some of our reflections here on our leather. Starting with an edge highlight on the side that is towards our light source. And add a little bit of a reflection in the middle here. On our buckles, we'll go ahead and add a nice bright highlight on the top of each buckle. There we go. And then the same on his buckle, on his big old belt. What's going to be interesting is these are I was going to make the belt buckle read as silver, but it may not matter because of the color of the light source. Go ahead and add a reflection in the inside of his belt here because the light would hit that, but it wouldn't hit the other side. So one thing that I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go in and add some shadows after I finished putting on some of this. Now let's add a little bit of color here in the reflection of his skin. Jaw here, like so, and then a little bit on his ear. There. And then, of course, what I'm going to do for his bandana, I think all I'm going to do is add a little bit of the bone color to this bright red that I used, just to kind of desaturate it a little bit, but also keep up the brightness without making it look pink. We're just going to add a touch of yellow. While it wouldn't read completely as orange necessarily, it would be close to red, you'd still do want a hint of that, the flamed color. Like so. So is it a newer game, Stormtrooper, or has it been out for a while? All right, I'm gonna grab some more of this Naples yellow. Gotcha, okay. Okay, for this, we're going to use on the little bands that are closest to the fire. Just going to add a very bright ring around the top. But metal is made from contrast, so I'm trying to kind of think through how I want to kind of make this look bright and metallic without making it look like the top is just less dull than the bottom. I don't know. I think what I'll do is I'll add a little bit of titanium white to my orange here and just put it over top the ring, because the closer to your light source, or I should say the brighter your light source is, the closer to white it will get. Or yeah, so I'll just add a little bit of a much brighter yellow here. Like so. And then we'll eventually work our way up to pure titanium white so we can get that contrast. One thing I really like about the yellow paint that I'm using, it's by a company called Golden. It's by their so flat line. Is I totally didn't call it that earlier, but whatever. It's extremely matte, which helps in painting, because especially miniatures and doing lighting effects and stuff like that, because the more matte it is, the less the light around you can affect it and trick your eye into thinking it is looking a way that it's not right. So it helps in situations like this where I'm trying to do a lighting effect, because I don't have to worry about like my desk lamp tricking my eye. I know that whatever I'm seeing is what I'm painting. There we go. All right, let's add a little bit of white in here just so that we can start to brighten up those areas that are closest to our flame on his cloak. Or duster, it's technically. And we'll also add some edge highlights here in areas where the light would be the brightest, just to make sure that we are getting some nice consistent effects here. Cool. All right, so now that I've done that, there are some things that I want to fix on his chest really quick. For instance, the other day we did a little bit of lighting effects on his skin. We had a little bit too much contrast between the mid-tone and our first highlight, so I'm just going to go in with a glaze and then just clean that up a little bit. And then on the areas that are closest to the flame, as always, we are going to take, well, I say as always, I'm going to take a little bit of that Xandri dust, mix it in with our yellow, and go ahead and add a few little light reflections on his skin. And the reason I'm mixing in Xandri dust is because our color, our light, would actually look a little bit different depending on what surface and what, right? So like if it was reflecting off a red surface, it wouldn't look yellow, it would look more orange. Just adding a little bit of that Xandri dust to our yellow so that it looks more like it's reflecting off of a different color. All right. Okay, cool. Nurgles, dude. I fought against a guy who plays Plague Marines, and they are just the absolute worst. I don't know how they are in that game, but man, they can be really tough. Might help if I do this in frame. Just adding a little bit of a bright white highlight to the edges of these buckles. Just to make it look a little bit more like a reflection. Alright, so one thing I'm noticing here is a spot in here that is a little bit too dark. So I'm just going to add a little bit of that orange mixed with my brown color here. So I don't want it to be completely bright, but I don't want it to be as dull as it is. Alright. Alright, cool. So let's add a little bit of a highlights on some of these back edges here, just so that it looks like it's just kissed by that light. It's not much, but I think it's selling the effect a little bit more. So I know most of you weren't, I don't think most of you were here when I said this out loud. So I actually had an interesting thing happen earlier today. And that interesting thing was that I been streaming for months with a big pot of water sitting right next to all of my nice expensive electronics, and I never once spilled it. Well, guess what? I spilt it. Like 2 or 3 minutes before the stream started. I was messing with something over here and came back, and my hand knocked it over, and it spilled all over my desk mat, over my mouse, all over me. These are the worst. Yeah, wasn't great. Thankfully my mouse is fine, but I will be taking my desk mat off of my desk. Probably going and cleaning it out a little bit, just to make sure that it's... And then of course letting it actually dry overnight. Alright, cool. So one thing I need to do really quick is there are some metal bits that I need to do real quick. So we'll go ahead and just start off with our normal everyday recipe. So we'll take a little bit of our fire color. We'll go to a dark gray. We'll just go ahead and paint over these little rivets that are on his spike holder. And this little pouch that he's got up here as well. And he's got this little belt with what looks to be like grenades. So I'm just... Actually, they almost look more like holy water. Like vials of holy water, which I think what they're meant to be. So we still have to do that. Oh man, I completely forgot about these little ornamentations here. I don't think I'm gonna do anything much more to the back. I don't think. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. And I also still have to do his hat too. All right, and all the spikes on his. Yeah, I've got a lot to do that I completely forgot about. I got a little bit too wrapped up in the lighting. All I'm doing is I'm just applying the very first coat of gray for our non-metallic metal. Again, metallics are kind of built on this idea of contrast. So the more contrast we can build up over time, the more we're going to be able to sell the effect of it being metallic. So go ahead and add a little bit here. Kind of, so some of these places that we've already kind of started the metallic process, we're going to go ahead and just start to do some recess shading or painting in shadows and things like that. We'll go ahead and take some of that wash that we had earlier. I'm going to apply a little bit of that to this handle of the torch here. And that didn't do anything because that was pretty much gone. So we'll grab a little bit more. So we'll grab the pure stuff instead of the watered down stuff. And just looking at the torch itself, I kind of did wanted to do kind of an ember thing on the torch on the inside. It's not really showing up that well, so I'm going to take some of this yellow that we used and then just kind of dot it around the edge to kind of make it look like it's like starting to char and get cold up. Like so. I don't know how well y'all can see that, but I think that looks pretty cool. Then again, to be fair, I think everything is looking cool so far. All right, we'll take some of the brown that we used on the spikes, add a little bit of yellow to it, and start building up our highlights there. Like so. All right, so one thing I'm going to do here, because whenever, and this is something I've noticed, and it's not necessarily something I've learned from somebody else, it's just something I'm noticing on this, and I've noticed on other times that I've tried to do non-metallic metal, is, or I should say, what am I doing? Object source line, good lord. Is that because I'm using so many similar colors, details tend to get lost a little bit. And so what I've historically done in the past, as far as like trying to separate things out, is just doing a little bit of a wash in the recesses. So I'm going to try that on this and see how well it works, because I want to make sure that I'm not adding a shade where we should have a highlight. But at the same time, I need some separation between some of these colors and some of these details to make sure that they're not being lost. So I think so far we're successful in what we want to do. Some areas we do want it to be a little bit more subtle, but in some we want it to be a little bit more stark. I'm using Agrax Earthshade mostly because we're using a lot of browns, and I don't really want to change the tones of those browns, but I do want to darken it a little bit. All right, cool. So I think we're looking pretty good so far. All right. Let's grab some of our pure yellow and add a couple of bumps, not bumps, but like a little bit more color to the highlights on his face. They're being a little bit lost. They're getting a little bit lost. Alright, so what color do y'all think I should be doing this hat? Because I have been racking my brain, and I think it looks decent in black. But I'm not entirely certain I like that. Maybe I'll do black, because he's got like this little buckle around the top of it. So maybe I'll do black and then maybe that buckle brown? I don't know. Because I think black fits the aesthetic really well. I was already going to do black on the decoration, or geez, decorative points on his like greaves here. So maybe we do the same thing. Yeah, we'll go with black. And again, just checking the direction of the fire just to make sure that I'm not covering up anything that shouldn't be. Now I'm going to kind of give the underside of this a reset just by painting the whole thing black. Because there's a lot of little dots and dashes from when I was doing his face on the hat here. There we go. Man, I'm dropping everything today, except the miniature. Thankfully. If I drop this miniature, I might just quit. All right, cool. So, fair enough. I have not dropped any frames. This is correct. All right, so while that dries, I'm gonna go ahead and work on these little casks here. I need some more of this yellow. I'm using a lot of it. It's a good color. Drop that on our palette. Grab a tiny bit of water, just to water it down a little bit. And I'm going to add some reflections on these little glass vials. As well as the little stuff that they're stuck to. I'm not really going to worry about painting them outside the grayscale that they're already in, because I think that looks fine. And then on his pants, there's a little bit of that's exposed, so we'll add a little bit of brown here. Or not brown. A little bit of the gray mixed with yellow. And then we'll just slowly work up from there to get to our bright color. Again, just looking from my flame, seeing where the light would hit. About like that. We'll just slowly add in our more and more yellow until we get to the color that we want to be at. And again, we're still painting in tiny lines versus using just a normal painting technique just to give it a little bit of texture. Down a little bit more. It's about right there. And then finally, I'm not sure if this will be the final highlight, but it's getting there. One thing that you kind of also have to worry about when doing object source lighting is you have to worry about light drop off. So where would the light actually start to fade away versus staying bright, which is why the stuff on this side isn't as bright as the stuff next to the flame. So I'm kind of trying to balance where the light would hit, how much of the light would hit. All right, and then we'll do the same thing on the boots. I think I want to keep the boots black, or I should say just grayscale. A little dash of color, almost like I'm stylizing them. And then we'll move up. Add a little bit more color. That's it for the far boot. For this one that's a little bit closer, we're going to go up to a pure yellow almost. Are. And then just one last highlight here on that particular boot. There we are. Getting real close to getting done, y'all. Just gotta do the hat, and I think we'll be finished. Well, the hat and then the ground below him, because the ground below him, shocker, would also be illuminated. So I'll probably do most of the ground just using a dry brushing, because it's gonna be super simple. And then maybe doing just a little bit of detail as far as the wow, I'm blanking. It's been a long day, y'all. At least that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. There we go. Do it with some like recess shading and things like that. That's the word I was thinking of. Why was recess shading hard for me to think of? All right, we'll take a little bit of really bright yellow here. Just got a couple dots here on these metal pieces. Like so. Just to give it a little bit of reflectiveness. Now, one thing I'm noticing is I don't think some of my shadows really close by are dark enough. So I'm going to take a corresponding color with shades. For instance, brown would be Agrax Earthshade. Red is going to be something scarlet. What is it called? It's Carroburg Crimson or whatever it's called. It's like on his skin here. I just want to add a little bit of that shade just to bring out that shadow, just to darken it a little bit. It's not going to take much, but it's going to be just enough to make it look shadowy. Shadow-esque? Whatever. It's going to make it look like it's got a real shadow on it. There we are. And then we're going to do that all over wherever we have places where we need to apply a little bit of shadow. Like so. Again, anywhere where we don't necessarily want shadow, but we do want separation, I'm going to add a little bit of that too. You know what I haven't done? I don't know what it is with this miniature. Maybe it's just because I'm exhausted or whatever. But I haven't done any kind of like reflections on this leather down here. Just realized that. So let's grab some of our dark umber, mix in a bunch of yellow. And get a good gradient and start highlighting that up. There we are. Coolio. And we'll just keep moving up in luminance and with our color. It's just slowly adding in more yellow. Because the leather bits here are a lot closer to our source, I'm probably going to start adding in a little bit of white as well until we get to a nice bright yellow. All right, and then add in a little bit of white. Again, we want to keep in some of that yellow, or some of that dark umber, so that we're keeping our color unity here. Like so. Now, one thing I want to do really quick is I did make a couple mistakes, and I painted over some of the shade in these recesses. So I'm just going to take a little bit of Agrax Earthshade, reapply it to these recesses. Because again, the closer to our light source that we get, the much darker shadows we're going to have. Like so. I'm almost tempted to use some Nuln Oil, which is a very, very dark wash to this. We'll see how this turns out once it dries. There we are. And then we'll do the same on the other side. So the other side, again, because of drop off, we're not going to go quite as bright. We do want to add a little bit here. And then we're going to step up the brightness a little bit. There we are. Then we'll add an edge highlight here on this little wrist bit here. There. And then the same over here. Except over here, we're going to pump up the brightness a little bit because we are much closer to the light source. And one thing that I'm thinking about doing, which I'll probably end up regretting, is to actually start really adding some deep shadow to the opposite side. So start maybe glazing in some black or some dark blue, just to start bringing out the shadowy sections here so that we can contrast the bright sections here a lot more. But first, let's grab some black. Add a smidge of white, a little bit of yellow, and start painting our hat. remember, when we're doing this, we want to look at our light source and see what light would hit. We don't want to just make the entire brim one bright color. There we are. And we'll just keep adding a little bit of white, a little bit of yellow with each pass, making the area that we are actually painting a little bit smaller each time. So basically with this, we are basically just painting normal volumes, like light volumes. So not worried about any one technique. We're not worrying about cross hatching. We're not worried about anything like that. We're just wanting to add the effect. Just looking to see where the brightest points on this brim would be. Alright, and then we're really going to start cranking it up, adding a lot more yellow, a little bit more white, as we start moving towards the edges, more towards our light source. And then bring out more yellow, a lot more yellow. Just do the front tip of the hat where we would be reflecting color. And then I'm going to use just a bit of pure yellow just to dot the front of the hat here. There we go. Looking at the fire, I don't think anything on the top of the hat would actually be illuminated, so we'll leave that dark for now. I might add just a little bit of areas with this dark gray just to, again, I don't think light would really be hitting it, or none of the firelight, I should say. But I do want to add a little bit of highlights here just so that we're not looking at something that looks flat and uninteresting. Even though this is in shadow, we would still be picking up a little bit of light. going back in with my black because it looks like I missed a couple spots. The reason I can tell is the black that I used for my priming is a satin. I wanted a satin because when I did my source lighting on the gun to kind of copy, I wanted to use satin so I could actually have reflections. But my black is completely matte, so seeing some areas where I was like, oh well, that's not matte, so that's obviously I missed it. There we are. Again, just adding a little bit of character to the hat here, just so that we're not losing any of that cool detail that the artist sculpted onto here. I know this is out of frame, but I'm doing some kind of fine work. There we go. Cool. All right, so now for the part that I think I'm gonna regret. You know what? I wonder. I'm thinking that I could probably, instead of glazing like I was going to, I could probably actually glaze using a wash. So what I mean by that is take a wash, which is naturally going to flow into the recesses, add a little bit of water to it, like I would normally paint. To kind of help water it down and make it act more like a glaze. I'm gonna need quite a bit. All right, cool. And then we add a little bit of water. Like so. And then we are just going to, I'm nervous about this because I have no idea what it's going to look like, but we'll just go ahead and start slathering it on. Kind of glazing it with this wash, just to help darken it up a little bit. I'm going to bring it right up to where we put the highlights. Just so that we get that contrast that we're looking for. Isn't looking terrible, which means it's looking good. Alright, so it just darkened it up quite a bit in contrast to the front here. I think that's going to be a nice contrast. One of the keys with a wash is not really letting it pool in one place, but just kind of moving it around, making sure that we get all of these different places and a nice even coat. We do want it to pool in some places, but we don't want a heavy pooling like we have along here. So one way to do that is to dampen your brush, because the dampened brush will actually wick away most of what we're looking for. All right, cool. And I might apply a second coat. Once this one is dried. Because I want to keep most of the color that I have here, but I just want to darken it up and add a nice contrast. So you can see there, look at that like stark contrast between those two. I want to make that a little bit more like popping. So what's going on, Tricky? He really is. Brendan Lee Mulligan is on another level. But it's like in a good way. It's weird how it works. And to be fair, so is Matt Mercer, just in a different way. Go ahead and add a little bit of black onto this back side of this base just to kind of get it matte. Yeah, it's insane how good he is. And that just kind of shows you, like, part of the thing about being a storyteller, which a DM is naturally just a storyteller, right? A good storyteller can bring out emotions in people that they themselves didn't know that they wanted to feel. And it's insane how well Brennan is able to do that. Like, he is able to make people absolutely care about the NPCs that he puts in front of them, and it's this really cool thing to watch. So I think now what we'll do is we'll grab our texture palette. We're going to take some of this here. We'll toss it on our texture palette. And we're going to start with our glow effect on the stone here. Which campaign were you watching? Gotcha. Yeah, Fantasy High. I unfortunately haven't taken the time to watch Fantasy High, but I hear amazing things with it. Amazing things about it, I should say. I'll grab more of this here. Yeah, yeah. And what I love about Brendan Lee Mulligan is it's like it's not entirely sane either. Like all of his NPCs are like absolutely insane sometimes, and it's so much fun to watch. So what I want to do now is take some of this black here, start kind of marking out shadows. Because shadows would create more of a straight line. Cut off the light. Especially this close. Yeah. It is honestly like probably one of my favorite D&D shows as far as like the quality of the characters, and like let's just like say what it is. Brendan Lee Mulligan would not be able to do what he does as a DM without players who actually care about what they're doing and about the game they're playing. So like, you know, yes, Brendan Lee Mulligan is a phenomenal DM, but their players are excellent as well. I'm sure he's probably gotten offers, and my guess is he just doesn't want to do it. I've watched like the first season, but for me it got a little bit too heavy, and I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed other shows, so I just stopped watching it. Pull this off real quick just so that I can start working around these edges, start blacking them out. Still have a few details left to do, but I might as well go do this while I'm waiting on the wash to dry. We're not done just yet. Well, we're close. Yeah, it is an incredible blend of fantasy and comedy and dramedy, and it's Brendan Lee Mulligan is one of those people where it's just like you can tell he cares about the story he's trying to tell. And he cares about the players who are telling it with him. And it's one of these rare blends. That show is one of those rare blends of phenomenal players, phenomenal DM, and you know there's a very obvious reason I think to everyone who watches it why they got so big. Not just because it's college humor. That helps with marketing and getting people to actually watch it the first time. But like if it's not a great show, people won't watch it. But it is. It's fantastic. But Brendan has a podcast. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, where he kind of goes through like his methodology, thoughts, and he invites people. Like he's had like some of his players on his podcast. He's had other DMs, like he's had Matt on a couple times. So yeah. Yeah, it's really, really, I think it's called Adventuring Academy. Yeah, that's what it's called, Adventuring Academy. The episode with Matt was phenomenal. The episode with, what's the kid's name? The guy who played the son of the pirate in Fantasy High. I can't remember his name. Yeah, Lou. The episode with Lou is fantastic too. Mostly because they addressed like how to be a good player as well as how to be a good DM, which was awesome. So, all right, so let's go ahead and do some wear on these little leather pieces here. Shouldn't take too long to do these, because we're not really going to build up the wear on these as much as we have in the past or with other pieces, since these are in shade. Yeah, exactly. And what's funny is if I remember what he said correctly, I believe that Fantasy High was Lou's either first campaign ever in D&D or like his like second or something crazy like that. Went up in brightness a little too quickly, so adding a little bit more dark gray there. Yeah. Which just kind of shows you like the how amazing Lou is at improv. He's a phenomenal improv artist. I was subscribed to Dropout for a little while because they were doing the Kids on Bikes playthrough. So Kids on Bikes isn't D&D; it's a different tabletop system, but they're essentially playing like a Harry Potter campaign. And I also like a couple of the game shows that Dropout does too, like Actually is fantastic. Go and watch a couple episodes of Actually on YouTube. It's so much fun. Essentially a bunch of nerds. The whole premise is that you have a bunch of nerds who are really passionate, and you have to correct statements that are made by the guy who's running it. It's amazing. Take a little bit of this dark umber here, and I'm going to add a little bit of black, and that's what I'm going to do his little hat strap here with. Yeah, Game Changer is hilarious too. The thing about Game Changer is not the same game every time. The actual game they play changes every week, and they don't tell the contestants what the game is. So they have to start off like the first few rounds with no idea what game they're playing. There was one game where they had Brendan Lee Mulligan on, and the game was the rules for the game was Brendan Lee Mulligan can't win. Those are the rules of the game they played. I'm gonna do a couple things here. Yeah. And that's what's fun about it, is it isn't always coherent. Oh yeah, that part. And what's funny is like they came out and said that was not scripted. Like that was Brendan Lee Mulligan in true form. Which again is fan-freaking-tastic, right? Alright, well, I do believe we are all done with this miniature, y'all. I think it looks flippin' awesome. Some cool OSL, some cool non-metallic metal, along with the object source lighting, which is something I've never done object source lighting with non-metallic metal. So I think it looks really cool. There might be something that I want to do really quick, just to add a little bit of color to these reflections. Just going to add a small little line of yellow just to the center of these barrels. Just so that we know that there is color being reflected. Like so. Super subtle, and you can't really see it on camera. But as always, I'll take pictures and post them so that you can see a little bit better. Yeah, I think that looks awesome. All right, well, we are at 2.5 hours tonight. I honestly did not think we would get this far. I didn't think that we would actually finish this boy tonight, but we did. As always, I will post pictures of him on my, you know what? Hold on. Before I do that, there is something that I want to do really quick. Where's my white? Oh, we'll use off-white. It's good enough. I want to actually add a little bit of a bright center to the reflection on the ground. Just to give a little bit of variance to the brightness here. There we are. All right, now we're done. All right, well, I appreciate it, Tricky. As always, I will post some pictures, a little bit higher resolution, and by high resolution, I mean iPhone quality. Yeah. So I will, as always, post up the different options that I have for miniatures for next time on my Discord. You can do !Discord if you are not a member of that, and you can help decide what I do next. So we'll go ahead and wrap up there tonight. As always, thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. It's always a pleasure getting to chat with all of you and to paint awesome miniatures. So I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you here on Monday. Have a good night.